With this being a background, I want to just talk about a media literacy. The question of media literacy is more important today than it has been beforehand. Today, there's more need for media literacy as a direct result of the world we live in. We cannot, and to this part, social media, I think, is a direct issue with this dynamic. The reason I say that is because the more and more uninformed people that have more rights to commentary will mean that more and more people who have no intelligence, at least in terms of media literacy itself, will have more right to speak. And while, yes, some might say, oh shit, this is actually quite a large force. I need to combine some fleets a second. Good, okay. I need more Luca hooks. Come on, ships, come on. Okay. As I was saying, more people having a voice doesn't make the voice any better. The voices themselves only have value if you can back up what you can say or do. The way you can learn to ask questions is also determined by the media or people surrounding you. Not everyone has a good sense of media literacy. That's not your own fault. Media literacy is something to be trained in. People who have no media literacy will potentially ask wrong questions and therefore get the wrong answers completely. I think. It's too loud. Let me fix this. Still slightly too loud. There we go. As I was saying though, the whole point about media literacy, the reason it's a slight concern is a agency exceeds expected parameters. I say it's still slightly too loud. That's better. Better. Yeah. So I got to do some minor micro in this battle due to my ships present. But I'll keep talking. As I say, media literacy itself is something you need to be trained in. You ask one question, you'll get the wrong answer. You ask the question the wrong way, it'll be answered in the wrong way. You cannot just ask a basic question. For example, if you ask a very, very basic question with no clarifying parameters, you'll get a basic answer back with no clarifying parameters. And this is going to be this is a huge issue I saw as a whole with a lot of people, especially on social media. Some aren't as bad, but some really do need to know how to ask questions. For example, it's like asking about countries. Like, ask about a country, right? You can ask about a country in of itself. But asking about that country does not necessarily make you. That itself isn't a clarifying factor. Let's say, for example, asking about how a country's economy is going, or how do you think about an economy? That really depends then on the subjectivity of what you're talking about, because how you view And for clarity, I know I'm not going to win, and I know these ships are going to be lost most likely, but that's okay. I can replace them. The issue is then that asking such questions about countries is that if you need to be super clear. Are you asking about which sector? For example, are you asking about? Let's say an example which someone did to me. Ours, China's. What do you think about China's economy? For example, using that as an example, the clarifier there is not there. You have to ask yourself, what about China are you asking about? Okay, economy. But then that's where the answer I gave back was very superficial in response, responding to their very superficial question. Actually, I might retreat now.
Evacuating conflict.
Retreat now before the engines get shot down.
Into a lock.
Then I can't retreat. The point is about that narrative is that okay? Are they asking about the economy in terms of how bad it is, or what? Wait. Oh, instructors. Oh shit! Yeah, they could do instructors. Ah, whatever. Whatever. This fleet is disposable. As I say, about the economy itself. Are they asking about the economy as in, is it going well or bad? People who are literate and know what hell they're asking knows they're asking a moral question in which they want to target you to answer in a specific way. And that's where, for example, I said, for example, the economy is being affected by the changes about anti-monopoly laws. Anti-monopoly laws then themselves define a rebalance. The reason why, for example, I would then say that that's not a sign necessarily that the economy is bad is because it's a simple rebalance. So to answer more specifically, I say, are we balancing potentially if I knew the data sets? But for example, that is just an example of bad questioning. The questioning as a direct result then, in that example, about the state of China, how I think about China's economy, was very bad. And that's actually one thing, this regardless, that I think journalism degree is actually did teach me quite well. Because clarity. The journalism assessments was basically trial by fire assessments. By that, I mean assessments you did were all practical assessments. So let's say you had to do like a assessment about doing articles, court cases, or whatever. You could not use media sources to do it. You had to either attend courts yourself, do the interviews yourself, find everything yourself, and so on. And that was how it worked. As a direct result, you had to know how to ask for interviews, how to ask questions, how to do everything. I guess I'm gonna die anyway, so I guess I'll put it on cinematic mode. As I was saying though, you have to know how to do things, how to ask questions, what sort of questions to ask. Is it a leading question? Is it a passive question? Are you going to get what you want from said question? Do you first butt it up, then ask? Do you first ask in such a blunt manner and hope it doesn't go bad? This is a dynamic in which needs to be understood. the tone, narrative, and situation in which you actually do ask questions matter. And that's where, for example, to give a brief lesson, to ask them about information, you need to first research it yourself. After you've done research and you're speaking to someone who knows more, you can ask more clarifying questions. When you ask more clarifying questions, you need to say specifically what you want clarified. So let's say you were to ask about climate change. Be specific. What do you want to know specifically about climate change? Do you want to know about the nature of climate change and its effects on the environment or surrounding communities? Do you want to ask about the effects of how it's affecting other things? Or not?
Reactor exposed.
For example, I'm using it because for assessments, for an assessment, we had to do a local story. There was the floodings, and for example, what I did is I talked to one. I tried to do something that didn't work out that well because they were busy or whatever. So what I did instead was talk to someone from the church and someone from the Manly Historical Association. And what that meant was that I actually, let's go over my reasoning for that. My reasoning for that, quite simply put, was if I talk about someone from the Historical Association, they can give me more background knowledge surrounding events, such as past trends and how that can impact the future. I also talked to small businesses because because where I live there's a market. So I spoke to people there. Holy, what's left? Wow, we might actually get a fleet remaining after this. Good job, ships. Good job. Right, if that's the case, rush the Golem station, rush that. Let's get out of this here and get some reinforcements.
Protect the control tower.
I guess we move along a bit.
From becoming clear.
Victory is inevitable.
Your engines are
You
out.
no longer have control of.
All your engines got wet to shit, but that's okay. You did very well. You fought against a lot of ISDs and victories, so I really can't blame you. I lost 7.
Shutdown sequence
So
nearly
6
complete.
Provenance and 2 Lucahawks. I can replace those. And shit, then there's also the other fleet, which took some damage to this force here, which I need to fix. Anyway, as I was saying about the assessment. As I was saying about the assessment, because of the market, I spoke to people on how it affected foot with flooding and climate change effects. And that was to pair with the data of the Historical Society, in which documented the whole series of events surrounding flooding in the area. And that's where, for example, questions you ask really do matter. And no, questions aren't just arbitrary. You can't just say a really vague question. And that's just an example.
Error, end of line.
And yeah, and as I said, that's one of the mistakes. And don't worry, I'm not blaming anyone necessarily for making that mistake. It's something which so many people do. It's not.
Reactor exposed.
Oh, problems.
General Grievous frowns on such ineptitude,
I guess
usually
everyone
with
target.
a lightsaber.
We got nothing to lose. I'm going to turn off cinematic mode since I need to at least control this so you at least get maximum damage. If you can at least take out a column or station, I can come back in when with other ships nearby to really just finish them off.
Wow, roger that.
I'm not exactly happy losing these split ships, but I also took down a really major formation of ships
Entering retreat state.
right next door to a star system. Right, as I was saying, clarity.
I'm hit.
Clarity as a direct result is the most important thing with media literacy. Asking questions is really important when doing this. Asking questions, be clear with your intention, be clear with what you want, and ultimately be clear with what
Friendly fire.
your desired outcome is. Do not hide your intent. Sometimes I might have to, but don't ideally hide your intent. Hiding your intent is not going to lead to a good outcome. Okay. Oof. Half the guns are
Explosion
gone.
detected.
That's not good. At least one Lukaku will be alive. At least. As I say, intentions. Ideally, if you can, show your intention of what you want from them.
Danger.
Oh, good, they were cheating. Less good damage. Two ISDs. Four ISDs. One immobilizer. Bloody hell, that's impressive. Where's my ground forces? First things first. Come here. And this is the only plan on this because just to make sure the population cap isn't
In production.
3, 2,
Constructing unit.
3.
Final arming sequence engaged. New unit online.
In production.
Final arming sequence engaged.
And for clarity, with this mod, I'm just doing it mostly for fun, not necessarily for torturing myself. And that's why I'm not to say too worried about it. Okay. As I was saying, intentions matter, especially in regards to when you do want to actually ask questions. Intentions are something you need to be really clear about. For example, vague questions. Vague questions are either a sign that someone's got very bad intentions, or ultimately someone who is ignorant. Which one it is depends heavily on the situation. Someone who's asking generally bad questions, and they have no literacy, media literacy training, they are going to be people who are, sad to say, doing it on purpose. They are not doing it because they don't know better. They're doing it because they know better, but don't want to admit that they're trying to be deceptive. The issue really is that sometimes you don't know the difference between people who are being deceptive about it and who are not.
Circuits functional. Beginning area patrol. Commander. Program activate. Here.
For example, the difference between someone who's media trained and still acts in a media illiterate manner versus someone who isn't media trained and acts in a media illiterate manner is that is the difference between someone who's trying to fool you versus someone who's trying to have your best intentions. Someone who, for example, acts in a ignorant manner after without knowing what they're doing is wrong, they are genuinely innocent. They cannot necessarily be blamed for what they are doing or saying because they are the ones who are ultimately acting out of ignorance.
Already.
But those who act not out of ignorance, but rather thinking that they are saying for the truth when they aren't saying the truth,
Better come up with a plan.
they can't be necessarily more forgiven, but they can be understood more so as being in a bad predicament or of not really understanding the situation surrounding things. And that's where the intentions of
I hate
come into play. Are they malicious intentions or are they not malicious intentions? The person with malicious intent is someone who will not necessarily stand by. Let's use like
squad.
who's attacking? Okay, it's only a squad. That's fine. B1, B2, go.
I'm on point.
Would that be it? Send
Yay.
in.
Missile ready.
You take those. For example, the difference between someone who is generally ignorant on the matter and those who are acting ignorant is those who are acting ignorant want those who are ignorant on the matter to act in a certain way. No need for volume one. That you got under control. Send the spiders. And the whole purpose of those who are acting ignorant to get those who are ignorant to side with them have killed. And that is going to be a huge issue in the long run, especially if you're going to be talking about media and how it's presented. Because as much as people think about the West media, a lot of narratives in it are recycled or just ignoring the realities of the surrounding events of things. Because sometimes people having a truth which is very convenient rather than actually truthful,
Your command.
sometimes this happens because they think that that's a better way of thinking that sending it for the truth. And that is going to be the biggest issue, especially when we go into the AI field. The more AI influences things, it could be a blessing or curse depending on the situation. And anyway, if you're curious about one, I got one. I own. I'm not that wide losses. I'm mostly playing this game for fun. Let's do human. Good. Yeah, as I was saying, that will be the biggest issue going forward. Now, the biggest issue will then now be those bad actors just out there who are trying to spread ill intent out. Ill intent spread by are not ignorant but when they have ignorant people think and have put certain positions will be a huge issue in the long run. And that's what people need to look out for. So while yes technology will evolve, people need to also understand fully that things as is can't necessarily stay as so.
Follow me.
Good work.
Some things do generally need to change.
Roger,
Some
roger.
and yes, this means some degree of gatekeeping will be needed in light of the crises in which we have in the world. Just because someone can speak doesn't mean what you say is necessarily good. Are you informed on the matter? Can you stand by what you say? Can you live by your principles of what you're promoting? Can you stand by the activism you are advocating for? And most importantly, I think this is what some people need to understand. Most importantly, is can you understand why some people will not support you and will not want you to get what you want? These are all important factors in which you need to apply, and especially in light of the situation surrounding the stuff now. Let's say, for example, in this case, Ukraine. Information is a front line in Ukraine. People are saying or believing from whatever side they want to necessarily side with. Medias have allegiances. People and civilians have allegiances. But But then the question is that you should, before you make any judgment, is who is the most informed one? Are you willing to accept certain sources, not willing to other sources, and so on, so on, so on? I'm sure you get the point. But the point, and yeah, that's the point. Literacy as, and that's where media literacy and political literacy all interlock and are important equally as much. You cannot just be media literate on something. Sometimes to be media literate, you need to be politically literate as well. There's no case in which you can just say live and let live on everything, absolutely. Because let's say, are you talking about any country, right? Oh, wait, it's their capital? Holy shit, that's good. They're gonna be so much shit from this. That's good. No wonder Effie was so strong. It's the capital! God damn it. As I was saying, if you're going to talk about some issues, then do enough checklist. Can you say you know enough about the situation as a whole to say that you are not just propagating propaganda from other people? Can you then say at the same time that you are not just being basically someone else's droid? Let's see. 9.
Construction complete.
You move me now. And that's the biggest issue that you will face going forward with anything surrounding this. Who are you going to be supporting by your narrative, you say, on social media? Because at the end of the day, even if you aren't, you are. And that is the thing. Oh, Super Joshua. As I was saying, the time is timed out on the software I was using. I'm back now. As I was saying, what you say and do when you talk about politics will. Oh, they're retreating? Bloody hell, that's good. Guess we fairly would be scared yesterday. They just lost their capital. Don't lose an SSD alongside a bulk of their remaining fleet. So I guess that's completely fair enough. That's fine. That's fine on my end. Less ships to replace. Good. As I was saying, how you actually, what you say online, will be used to support agendas. Whether you are political or not, it doesn't matter. Politics will happen anyway. There's this. I'll do that one. I don't need to do that one. But what you say will, regardless, affect other people. There's no ways about it. You will always have that situation happen. Ideally, that won't happen, but that's an ideal. There's no way to guarantee that. So, let's say with like stuff around marriage, abortion, all of that. Regardless of your position, you'll affect someone. Everyone will be affected in some way on any point you mention, on any political point you take. So is this better to be more literate and politically there, rather than not? And if you get anything out of this, merge political literacy with everything else, because you really need it. Especially with the situation we are in today, where there's much more of an increase in social media. Social media is something which can be weaponized potentially in the long-term future, and if you're not smart about it, you can be taken for a fool. Don't be stupid and think you're above being fooled and tricked. You can be fooled and tricked easier than you can think. For example, the whole election systems in most places exist. Sorry. There we go. Better. For example, that's the whole point of the election system. To basically trick and fool the civilians of those said places to support X or Y. Even if it goes against their interests. And that's just reality. Social media is no different from that in any real sense of the imagination. Social media, in many ways, is just an arm of influences of society. So what you say on social media affects everything. If you're going to be consistently diplomatic and polite, fine. But if you are going to make political statements or talk about media itself, at least be aware of what you're talking about and the situations you're talking about specifically. Because if you then fall in the trap of then supporting a position in which is very bad in the long run, you are not helping anyone in any case. Social media, there's a reason why social media has been regulated in so many places. Because social media itself is a place where people with uninformed positions can still say uninformed things with zero repercussion. And it's not like any of that has no harm whatsoever. It does have harm. The harm rather in it is more subtle. And before you know it, there's a potential that you, as a person on social media, could just be repeating propaganda yourself. And that is a really critical difference here. Propaganda as a whole is based that way. And that leads to the final part of what I want to talk about. And that is propagandists. When someone is called a propagandist, does that necessarily mean that they're paid or doing it on purpose? No, not always. A propagandist is someone who just propagates. When I say propagandist, I don't, to clarify, I'm just talking about someone who propagates certain ideals and systems. And that's it. I'm not talking about anything else other than that. Anyone under that can become a propagandist. You don't need to be paid or part of a media corporation to be a propagandist. You don't even have to be part of a government to be a propagandist. Anyone can be a propagandist as a direct result. You are not special. You are not immune to this. You, without knowing, can become a propagandist. And this is why, again, literacy is super, super important in today's age. And as a direct result, yes, you can avoid being a propagandist. It's not impossible. And this is where the difference really does lie. Because the propagandists themselves is going to be so, whether they think they are or not. Still checking. Oh. Oops. Oh, fine. Sorry, just checking my supply lines. Good. Supply lines are still fine. Fantastic. Let's send up these. Let's get these all cleared up. As I was saying, you are not immune from being a propagandist. You, as a normal civilian, can easily become a propagandist in the right setting. Ukraine is a perfect example of this. A lot of people have been turned into Ukrainian propagandists. People have forgotten that you have a right to not have any position in it at all. You can just refuse to comment on the matter. You can just be yourself. Nice. They're on the run. Thank you very much. And as I was saying, propagandists about Ukraine. When the situation in Ukraine began, people were ultimately being unofficial tools of the Ukrainian propaganda ministry. Unironically, the media was also doing that to some extent, but then people on social media then escalated that, became another wing of it. And that is something which you need to understand. You can very easily become that. In the right setting, and if the right circumstance and right loyalties is there, You will, well, you can become a propagandist. No ifs and or buts. Good, good. They're retreating. And as a direct result, the second you become a propagandist for them, that's when you lose the ability to actually control the narrative. Because once you become the propagandist for an agenda online, by virtue of just existing there and just doing it. Oh, what? Hello. It's in the fleet. It's very inadequate of you, but whatever. As I was saying, propagandists. By virtue of you then supporting propaganda and then copying such propaganda, you can very easily become a direct participant of spreading propaganda. And on social media, the chances that you could become an accidental propagandist could increase as well. Don't think that again that you're immune to anything. Don't think that you're going to be the one who's going to be a truth seeker in all cases. Everyone has that weird susceptibility to being a propagandist. For example, people, people, if surrounded by certain things, will just inherently support certain things. People will always do certain things. If what you have is threatened, you might just go and condemn something, look down on something, act against something. Does that necessarily mean you're doing a bad thing? Well, that depends on what you're advocating for. But sometimes, if what you're advocating for aligns with propaganda, you are then becoming a consequential propagandist. And that is something in which people need to be, and that's why it's really important to understand such concepts and realities of life. The reality is, at the end of the day, that life is not so black and white. You're told and preyed on so you can do certain things, behave in certain ways, vote in certain ways. You just need to be more literate to reality itself. And as an example, right? The whole test case studies. If you and for example, especially with regards to Ukraine, is there any real difference between those who are advocating for Ukraine and the Nazis? Not necessarily. You both fell for the same trap. Some people realized afterwards and fix it, but you still fell for the same trap. And with that,